Consensus is often the absence of leadership. Famous words of Margaret Thatcher, former Prime Minister of the UK, and now gospel for Sanae Takaichi, the current Prime Minister of Japan. She's just weeks into her premiership and she started with a bang. Forget consensus. Takaichi is locked in a full-blown confrontation with China. It may be hurting her country's economy, but it's helping her political career. Look at the G20 summit. Leaders from across the globe were in South Africa. Sanae Takaichi was there too. So was Chinese Premier Li Qiang. Apparently, Takaichi was hoping for some sort of engagement. Reports suggest that she took extra care with her wardrobe to project that she had an upper hand in the negotiation. But that negotiation never happened.
I did not have the opportunity to communicate with Chinese Premier Li Qiang at this G20. Japan's policy of comprehensively advancing a strategic and mutually beneficial relationship with China and building a constructive and stable relationship has been consistent since I became Prime Minister.
What followed was a frosty photo shoot. Takaichi and Li Qiang were both present, but they maintained their distance. Once the photo shoot was over, Takaichi was asked about it. She said that Tokyo was open to dialogue.
Since there are issues and challenges between Japan and China, I believe we should reduce them and increase understanding and cooperation. Japan remains open to various forms of dialogue with China. We have not closed any doors. It is important that within this context, Japan insists its positions where necessary. We will continue to respond appropriately based on this stance.
So Takaichi is trying to cool the rhetoric, but Beijing is not having any of it. Look at Wang Yi's statements. He is the foreign minister of China and he says Japan has crossed some red lines. Beijing has now taken this spat to the United Nations. They're accusing Tokyo of threatening a quote-unquote armed intervention. So things are clearly getting serious. Now we've been tracking this standoff on our show here on Vantage. The whole thing, as we've told you, started with one statement. Prime Minister Takaichi was asked a simple question. What would Japan do if China attacked Taiwan? She implied that Japan may respond militarily. That was her statement. And it led to all hell breaking loose. Because until now, Japan had been ambiguous. Their leaders never said anything explicitly about Taiwan. There was just an implication that Japan may act if forced to. But nothing had ever been spelt out. Not by a prime minister, definitely. Until, of course, Takaichi's comments. Of course, Beijing reacted with fury. It told Chinese citizens to not travel to Japan. It reimposed a ban on Japanese seafood. It delayed the release of Japanese films and concerts. And it heated up nationalistic rhetoric online. It's classic Chinese playbook. But you see, in politics, sometimes your opponent is your best campaign manager. In Takaichi's case, that's certainly happening. Every time she takes a sharper line on China, her approval ratings tick upward. Let me show you a poll which was conducted just days after her comments. Her approval ratings were up by 6 points. Nearly half of the Japanese public endorsed her idea. They said Japan should be able to defend itself if the Taiwan Strait erupts. And part of this is timing. Japan has been reassessing its security posture for years. Its defense budgets have grown. Also, look at the distance between Japan and Taiwan. From Japan's westernmost islands, Taiwan is barely 110 kilometers. So the Japanese public is wary. Basically, Takaichi is speaking into a microphone that is on. That's one part. The other part is her politics. Takaichi leads Japan's ruling party, the LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party. It's a right-wing party. And even within this party, she is part of the more conservative wing. Her camp has been constrained by Japan's post-war constitution, a pacifist constitution that did not allow Japan to go to war. But she has taken a hardline position. She believes that Japan must speak plainly about Taiwan, not for Taiwan's sake, but for Japan's own security. Because Taiwan is just across the water. A crisis there would not remain a distant fire. It would send embers into Japan's backyard. And Takaichi is betting that clarity today will deter aggression tomorrow. Is that a reckless approach? Well, the answer depends on who you ask. Is this position hurting Japan? Not very much, not yet. China's economic response has been targeted but limited. But the real test would come if China escalates with restrictions on rare earth exports or more aggressive naval maneuvers. It's not happened yet. For now, China has only been posturing. But they're also learning the hard way that their pressure campaign is strengthening the leader they had hoped to subdue.
They promised glory. They delivered fear. They shaped nations. They scarred generations. From brutal purges to propaganda machines, from stolen power to violent falls from the throne. Welcome to The Dictator, a series that strips away the myth and then exposes the men behind the tyranny. History remembers their power. Firstpost reveals their truth.